feel like you're constantly pushing yourself, trying to get things done.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe you manage it for a bit, but then, bam, you just hit a wall.
Totally. Feeling stuck or just completely burned out.
Exactly. And you're left wondering, like, what was all that effort even for?
Such a common feeling. And we tend to think, oh, I just need that spark,
Yeah.
or I just got to push harder, brute force it.
Right.
But the material we're diving into today, it really challenges that. It suggests those exact approaches might be the problem.
Yeah, that's what grabbed me about this one. We're looking at the motivation mechanic, practical strategies to get things done without the burnout from the Therapist Handbook talk. And it really cuts through a lot of the usual advice about motivation and willpower that often just doesn't work long term.
Right. So our mission here really is to pull out the core insights from this. We want to help you find a way forward that's sustainable, less exhausting.
Something that doesn't leave you feeling completely depleted all the time.
Exactly. A path that actually works with you, not against you.
Okay, so how are we going to break this down? We'll start by looking at why those common ideas, the motivation spark, the willpower push, why they often fail us, according to the material.
And then we pivot. We look at what the material says is the real fuel, which is all about connecting with what deeply matters to you, your values.
Finding your why.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And then, okay, you've got the fuel. How do you build the engine? So we'll get into the practical strategies, the nuts and bolts.
Makes sense. And finally, how to build that internal support system, right, to keep it all going.
Yeah, think of it less like waiting for lightning to strike and more like building a reliable internal generator. Let's unpack it.
Okay, let's dive in. First up, that motivation myth. The material really takes aim at this idea that motivation is just a feeling you can somehow switch on.
Right, that burst of energy we sometimes feel. The material points out that's usually just, well, enjoyment. You're doing something you already like or find interesting. It feels easy.
It's flow.
Exactly. But trying to force that specific feeling for something you dread, that's where the problem starts. It's just fighting yourself.
And the material is blunt about it.
Yeah.
Trying to conjure up joy for drudgery, that's suffering. And suffering isn't sustainable fuel. It's like trying to push a giant rock uphill.
Right, precisely. You might move it a tiny bit with sheer effort, but you'll wear yourself out. And guess what? It rolls right back down. It's exhausting.
Which leads perfectly into the next point, the willpower trap.
Yeah, because when the spark idea fails, what do people do? They think, okay, fine, I'll just grit my teeth, use willpower.
Just power through.
But the material frames this so well, it calls it pain management.
Ooh, pain management. That hits hard. Sounds like you're just enduring, not actually fixing the underlying issue.
That's exactly it. And the core problem, the material argues, is that willpower. Well, it's finite. It runs out. Think of it like a phone battery.
Yeah.
Every tough decision, every temptation you resist, every bit of emotional heavy lifting, it drains the battery.
Oh, I feel that. Like trying to resist cookies after a really, really long, stressful day. The willpower battery is just gone by evening.
Or starting some ambitious new diet or workout plan, all fired up with willpower.
Yeah.
And then a few weeks later, you're completely off track, feeling burned out and maybe even guilty.
It's like trying to patch a leaky pipe with duct tape.
Exactly. It might hold for a bit, but the underlying leak is still there. Relying only on willpower is this constant internal battle, and it just leaves you drained, mentally, emotionally.
So the material argument is pretty clear. Chasing a feeling or using brute force willpower, these are traps. They lead to burnout.
Right.
So if those aren't the answers, what is the sustainable way?
And this is where we get to the heart of it, according to the material. Values-aligned commitment.
Okay.
It shifts the whole focus, away from temporary feelings or external pressure and towards something deep inside, something lasting. It's about basing your actions on what truly genuinely matters to you, your core values, your why.
So it's about purpose. That quote the material uses really stands out. He who has a why to live can bear almost anyhow.
Yes, that's it exactly. When you're clear on why something is important, truly important at a values level, the how, even if it's difficult or tedious or uncomfortable, becomes much more bearable.
It doesn't magically make hard things fun.
No, definitely not. But it infuses them with meaning. And meaning is a powerful, sustainable fuel.
So how do we find this why? It's not always obvious, is it?
No, it often isn't, especially when life is busy. But the material offers some really practical exercises to uncover your values.
Like thinking about your perfect day. What values are alive in that vision?
Right. Or the frustration list, what really gets under your skin. Often that points directly to a value that's being stepped on or ignored.
Or the hero exercise. Who do you admire and what qualities do they embody? Those are probably your values too.
And the funeral test, which sounds a bit grim, but it's powerful. What do you hope people would honestly say about you? That cuts right to your core legacy values.
It also mentioned just asking why repeatedly.
Yeah, like digging down. Take something you think is important and ask why. Then ask why about that answer. Keep going until you hit that fundamental reason, that core value.
Like the Sarah doing taxes example in the material. She hated it, total drudgery.
Mm-hmm.
But when she asked why she had to do it, she connected it to, like, responsibility, being a contributing member of society, taking care of her future.
Right. And did doing taxes suddenly become, a party? No. But it shifted from pointless suffering to meaningful action, action aligned with her values.
Okay, so identifying values is step one, but then you have to use them, right? The material makes this distinction between goals and values-driven intentions.
Yes, this is crucial. We're so conditioned to thinking goals. Get the promotion, lose the weight, make the money.
Which aren't bad things in themselves.
Not at all. But the danger, the material points out, is that if you're only focused on hitting that outcome, you might start compromising your values to get there faster.
Like cutting corners for the promotion, or developing unhealthy habits to lose weight quickly.
Exactly. Or maybe neglecting relationships in the pursuit of money. You hit the goal, but you feel empty because you sacrifice things that truly matter along the way.
So the destination isn't fulfilling if the journey compromised your values.
Right. Intentions, as the material frames them, are different. They're more about the direction you're heading, not just the final stop. They focus on the process. How do you want to act? Who do you want to be today?
So it's about alignment now, not just achievement later.
Precisely. So instead of get a promotion, the intention might be act with integrity and excellence in my work.
Okay.
Instead of lose 10 pounds, maybe it's nourish my body respectfully and move it in ways that feel good.
Or make more money becomes use my skills to create value and contribute meaningfully.
You see the shift. Goals are often about what you want to have. Values-driven intentions are about who you want to be, how you want to live. That's the sustainable drive.
That's a really powerful reframing. So for you listening, maybe pause and think, what's a goal you have? How could you frame it as an intention, guided by a core value? What value could shape how you pursue it?
Understanding values as fuel is that foundation. So the next logical question is, how do you build the engine? How do you turn that fuel into consistent action? The material gives us practical strategies here.
Okay, got the fuel. Now for the engine build. What's the first strategy the material suggests?
It starts with tackling overwhelm. Those huge tasks like organize the entire house or write a novel. They just feel like impossible mountains.
Yeah, instant paralysis.
So the first step is breaking those mountains down into really small, manageable steps. Tiny steps.
But it's not just about making them small, is it? It's keeping the value connection.
Exactly, that's key. Take organizing a messy closet. The mountain is organized closet. The tiny step might be empty just one shelf.
Okay, doable.
And then you consciously link that tiny action back to your value. Maybe it's creating a peaceful space or respecting my things. So emptying that one shelf isn't just a chore. It's a small act toward that value.
Or the write a song for a friend example. The big goal is the finished song, but the intention might be linked to creativity or connection.
Right. So the tiny steps become brainstorm one theme idea, write down one possible lyric, figure out one chord. Each small action is fueled by the deeper why, not just the distant outcome.
But what about the really mundane stuff, the things that just feel like chores with no obvious grand purpose? Laundry, emails, errands.
Yeah, the everyday grind. The material says you absolutely can find meaning there too, but it takes conscious effort. You have to intentionally link them to values.
How do you do that?
Well, the material suggests finding the hidden connection. Like doing dishes isn't just scrubbing plates. It's an act supporting order or hygiene or care for your home. Grocery shopping links to health or nourishing your family.
Okay, I see. Or focusing on the how.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe you just do the laundry mindfully,
Yeah.
paying attention to the sensations. That connects to a value like presence or mindfulness.
Looking for the ripple effect, too, right? Sending that boring email might connect to collaboration or keeping commitments.
hmm Or creating a little ritual around it. Even using simple if-then plans. If I finish lunch, then I will tackle one email, reminding myself this supports my value of being responsive.
So you're training your brain to see the purpose, even if the task itself isn't thrilling, makes the action meaningful, not just painful.
Precisely. Now, the material brings up something really important here, the
Hmm.
difference between values and comfort, and how this ties into burnout.
Ah, right. Because living according to your values, it's often uncomfortable, isn't it?
Very often, yes. Our brains are wired for comfort, for the easy path. But think about it. Growth, learning new things, having difficult conversations, standing up for something, these are often uncomfortable.
But they're also deeply tied to values like courage, connection, learning, contribution.
Exactly. So if we only do what feels comfortable, we're likely avoiding the very actions that align with our deepest values and lead to a meaningful life.
Okay, so discomfort can be good, but then there's burnout, which is definitely not good. How do you tell the difference? How do you know if you're in the growth zone or heading for a crash?
This is such a critical distinction. The material offers real clarity. Discomfort, the growth kind, is usually temporary. It feels challenging, it may be a bit scary, but often has an underlying sense of purpose. You're stretching yourself.
Okay.
Burnout is different. It's chronic exhaustion. It's feeling cynical, detached, ineffective, like you're just running on fumes and losing sight of why you're even doing it.
So discomfort might be a sign you're leaning into a value, while burnout might mean you're pushing past your limits, maybe even sacrificing well-being for a goal.
That's a great way to put it. The material suggests asking yourself some check-in questions. Am I feeling challenged, or am I feeling fundamentally drained? Am I stretching myself, or am I consistently pushing past my physical or emotional limits? Does this action, even if hard, feel aligned with my values? Or does it feel like I'm compromising my well-being just to keep going? And does this feeling get better with rest? Or is it this persistent, heavy state?
Those are really clarifying questions. If it's persistent exhaustion, cynicism, feeling ineffective, the answer isn't push harder.
No. The answer is rest, recovery, maybe reassessing things. If it's discomfort with a sense of purpose and you're generally okay otherwise, that's probably the growth zone. Lean in gently.
Like the writer example, wrestling with difficult edits feels uncomfortable, but it serves the value of authenticity. That's growth.
Right. Versus the social worker example, working relentlessly, neglecting self-care, feeling empty and cynical despite valuing compassion. That's burnout territory.
Your well-being, the material really stresses this, is the engine itself. Values are the fuel. You absolutely need both.
You can have the best fuel in the world, but if the engine is shot, you're going nowhere sustainably.
So true. Which means we need that internal support system too, right? To keep the engine maintained. The material calls this cultivating self-alignment.
Yeah, it's about getting your inner world, your values, your thoughts, your actions working together in harmony.
How do you do that?
Two main pillars, according to the material: self-compassion and self-awareness.
Self-compassion. Being kind to yourself.
Essentially, yes. Treating yourself with the same understanding and support you'd offer a friend who's struggling. Recognizing that making mistakes or finding things hard is just part of being human. It's that internal voice saying, okay, this is tough. May I be kind to myself right now?
Instead of beating yourself up.
Exactly. And self-awareness is about paying attention to what's happening inside, noticing your thoughts without getting totally caught up in them, understanding your triggers, reflecting regularly on your values so you stay connected. Simple journaling can help here, as the material suggests.
Building that foundation of inner kindness and understanding makes it easier to navigate the tough stuff involved in living your values.
Definitely. The material also talks about that voice in our heads, that constant chatter, building an internal why network.
That internal commentator, mine can be pretty critical sometimes.
Mine too. And that voice can either help or seriously hinder your efforts. A constantly critical inner voice undermines your values and commitment. A supportive, realistic one reinforces your why.
But it feels like those thoughts just pop up automatically. Can you really shape them?
You can. The material suggests strategies. First, just become aware of the thought without automatically buying into it. Then gently question it. Is it 100% true? Are there other ways to look at this situation?
Seeking alternative explanations.
Right. Or using yes, but statements like, yes, I didn't handle that perfectly, but I did my best in a tough situation. It adds nuance.
And consciously creating helpful thoughts, like affirmations.
Yeah, but value-aligned ones. If you value courage but feel fear about a task instead of I'm such a coward, consciously practice thinking, I feel fear and I'm capable of taking one brave step forward.
It's about choosing what you focus on internally.
Exactly. And also being mindful of what you let in, maybe less doom scrolling or comparing yourself on social media if that fuels the inner critic. It's about actively cultivating a more supportive internal environment.
Okay, so we have fuel, values, engine strategies, internal support. But what about just inertia? That feeling of, ugh, I really don't want to start. Resistance?
Totally normal. Resistance is almost guaranteed when you're doing something meaningful that requires effort or pushes you out of your comfort zone. The material is clear, resistance is expected, but it doesn't have to be a showstopper.
So you don't have to wait for resistance to disappear.
No, definitely not. It's about learning to notice those resistant thoughts. This is too hard, I'll do it later. Without letting them drive the bus. See them as just thoughts, like clouds passing by. Acknowledge them, maybe even thank your mind for trying to protect you, but don't automatically obey them.
Notice, don't fuse with the thought.
Right. And then you deploy the practical just start strategies from the material. These are designed to just get you moving, to bypass the debate in your head.
I like the sound of bypassing the debate. What are some of those?
There's the 2-minute rule.
Hmm.
If it takes less than 2 minutes, you just do it immediately. No procrastination.
Simple.
Tiny habits.
Okay.
Make the first step ridiculously small. Instead of go for a run, it's put on running shoes. That's it. Lowers the barrier to starting.
Reduces the overwhelm.
Exactly. The 5-second rule, count down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and physically move towards the action before your brain talks you out of it. Or just commit to one tiny step. Tell yourself you only have to do that one thing. Often, once you start, momentum builds.
So action actually fuels more action rather than waiting for motivation.
That's the idea. Get the flywheel spinning, even just a tiny bit. But, and this is crucial, the material reminds us again about the burnout alert.
Right. Is this feeling resistance that needs a gentle push, or is it genuine exhaustion screaming for rest?
You have to listen to your body and mind.
Yeah.
Trying to just start when you're utterly depleted is like trying to start a car with an empty gas tank by pushing it harder. It doesn't work and can make things worse.
Pushing through deep exhaustion isn't strength, it's ignoring vital signals.
Precisely. And finally, the material frames this whole thing as a marathon, not a sprint. Long-term commitment requires ongoing effort and adjustment.
So how do you keep it going? Keep the engine running and fueled without burning out down the line?
Regular values review is key, says the material. Check in. Are my actions still aligned with what matters most to me now? Life changes. Values might shift slightly. Setting realistic expectations, progress isn't linear. There will be bumps.
Building accountability. Celebrating small wins.
Yes, exactly. Reinforce the positive actions. And keep learning. Keep adjusting your strategies based on what's working for you.
And setbacks. They're inevitable. How do we handle those without giving up?
Reframe them. The material emphasizes seeing them not as failures, but as data. Learning opportunities. Okay, what happened here? Did I drift from my values? Did I ignore signs of burnout? What can I learn? Adjust the approach. And crucially, practice self-compassion. It's okay. Get back on track gently.
That burnout-proofing advice seems so important for the long haul. Recognizing signs early, making rest a non-negotiable part of the plan, setting boundaries.
Using those check-in questions regularly. Am I feeling energized or drained by this process overall? Is my well-being prioritized alongside my values? Am I realistic about my limits right now? These aren't signs of weakness. They're signs of sustainable self-management.
Wow. This deep dive into the Therapist Handbook talk on the motivation mechanic, it really offers a different path, doesn't it? Moving away from that exhausting cycle of chasing sparks and forcing willpower.
Yeah, towards something much more grounded and sustainable, rooted in what actually matters to you.
So to recap the big ideas, find your why, your core values. Set intentions, not just goals. Focus on the process, the direction. Connect even small, mundane tasks to those values to give them meaning.
Right. Understand that discomfort is often part of growth, but burnout is a signal to stop and rest. Build that internal support system with self-compassion and by consciously shaping your inner dialogue.
And use those practical strategies, breaking things down, just starting small to overcome resistance and stay committed over the long haul, always protecting your well-being, that engine.
That's pretty much the roadmap.
So for you listening now, maybe just pick one thing. What's one idea from this deep dive that really clicked for you? Could you connect one task this week to a value? Could you reframe a goal as an intention? Or what's one tiny 2-minute step you could just start today, simply because it aligns with something important to you?
And here's a final thought to chew on based on the material. If sustainable action truly comes from aligning with your values, even when it's uncomfortable, what's one small discomfort you might be avoiding right now that, if you leaned into it just a little, could actually be a step towards living a value that matters deeply to you? That might be a really useful question to explore.
If you want to dig deeper into these concepts, you can check out the author Ronan Danziger and his book, The Therapist's Handbook for Healing from Emotional Burnout. More info is also online at therapisthandbook.com.
Remember, sustainable change really is possible.
Thanks so much for joining us for this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.